Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Transfer Market Metrics for Anfield Index. The season is nearly over. It's set to be won against Spurs, but all that means, people, is moves for the summer, and we won't have to wait that long to find out who or what they are. And we've got three more for you in episode number 23, Barts, I think this one is, isn't it? So we're racking up the names quick and fast. Here's an interesting question. Without giving too much away, if any of these were to be bought this summer, any of them, would you be happy?
Oh, that's a curveball. For different reasons. I think one of them is an exciting player, Whether I think it's right for our system is almost irrelevant, But yeah, it'd be exciting to see him play for sure. And the other two, one you can't actually do what you've just asked, but as people will work out as soon as we get to them. And the other one, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to be against it. It's an area we need bodies in. Again, whether he's the player I would buy, he's, again, not that important. But yeah, he'd be okay if we signed him.
Well, I suppose then, ladies and gents, we best find out which one goes for which. And we start with a player I've no doubt you've heard of here, Rayan Cherki. Now, this is French player, well-known, did very well against Manchester United the other day. Skillful, no doubts about it at all, Barts. We're talking about a lad who, as you can see there, has got 12 goals, 17 assists across Ligue 1 and the Europa League. So I think in all competitions, it's something like 30 goal contributions. So talented, zero doubts about that. We've seen him, his dribbling, his ability to go forward, almost what I'd call a FIFA type player. Plenty of skill. Liverpool linked with many, many times in the recent past. And, the other day, literally, although you wonder how much of that is just because of Lyon's situation and playing well against Manchester United. But hey-ho, Rayan Cherki. We might do it when we come to FBref in a slightly different order, but the metrics for this player, Barts, I am intrigued by this one.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, it's probably some, maneuverings around in the media, should we say. We're very good at using the media, so does a lot of people. So, yeah, you have to take it with a pinch of salt, but there are links. He's done about 2,100, minutes. That's good, for the season. As you said, he's got goals and assists. He's got XG. He's got non-penalty XG. He's got XA, which is expected assists. There is a lot to like about this kid. And he's 21 as well, so that's something to think about. Just to give you exact plan time. So yeah, he's down. This season is probably his high point, and he's still got games to go. So he's played 1,822, 23. So yeah, there's a progression in his minutes, should we say, which seems to be now he's topping out probably just short of 2,000 minutes. So that's not bad. Team success when he's on the pitch this season is plus 87, plus 34 in terms of XG. So that's very good. So actually, in the last three seasons, he's had a positive impact on the team's XG to the notion of a big chance. Yeah, it's a big chance. It's typically over 0.2 as well. So that's certainly something to be thinking. Okay, yeah, that's certainly something to thinking about. Dual rate, just because we always talk about it, not particularly high, but 33%. Okay, not too bad. If we roll up to how does he do in terms of passing? So take-ons is one of his big things that you'll see him do. Take-ons per 90. He's attempted 4.3, which is down slightly this year, to be fair. But his success rate is also down. So a little bit of a lull for him in terms of take-ons. Touches about the same, but just sort of 70 touches per game. And then we always talk about how many are in the attacking box. Yeah, he's averaging about 6. He's below that this season, about 5, where Mo was about 7-ish, but that's good for Mo to get up there. So these are good numbers. This is not something to be going, oh my God, there's a worry here. Defensive we'll come on to in a minute. So shot created actions, though, I think what did you say, 30? So shot created actions, he is averaging per 96, which again is a good number. He is, if we go up to not that passing, I'm just going to look for, so passing types. His short game has increased, so he's got about 573, whereas he's gone up by just short of 100 from last season in terms of short. Medium dropped down, but it's about 400. A long game, less so. So yeah, he's attempting per 90. He's attempting between 55 and 60 passes a game. And he has a completion rate of just short of 80. So he's playing in the front line. Typically that's, or in the 10, but that's still a fairly good percentage of passing completion, considering Mo, we typically have a standpoint of being 70 odd or something like that. So yeah, that's okay. Expected assists, XA is 0.5, actual assist 0.46. So again, that's some, as you would expect, a very creative player. If you start putting that all together, though, if I can get up to standard, and we go non-penalty XG plus expected assists, he is at per 90.71. Now, remember, we talk about our wide players being 0.6 or 0.55 to 0.6, typically the range we've looked at this season. So this guy is a lot better than the guys we've looked at before. I mean, substantially better, right? That's a 0.15. That's like
big,
a player's worth a game sort of thing. So that's very good, to be fair. You can't be knocking that. Yes, it's more, and again, it's more, if you look at the ratio here, so XG is 0.24 versus 0.47 in terms of expected assists. So, or expected XG, sorry. So the ratio is more curated than it is actual goals scored. So I think it's some very good signs here, should we say. If we do look at our usuals for him, we'll start at the top, all right, the good stuff. I'm going to start by saying I'm going to put him in the attacking mid-wingers at the start, okay, because I think we would be looking to play him, left at the front three, or left or right, maybe in the 10, but just in those kind of areas rather than midfield. So non-penalty goals, 80th percentile. Okay, it's pretty good, 0.37 a game. Non-penalty XG, so he must take penalties because it drops. Normally you wouldn't see that much of a drop if it wasn't. That's 0.56. Shots total, it doesn't take enough shots on, but then that's probably because he's looking to be creative. Assist, 99th percentile. Expected assisted goals, 99th percentile. Non-penalty XG and expected assists, 95th percentile. Shot created action, 6.7, 90th percentile. So that creation side of his game, you can't get much better than him in the last year. All right. That's an exceptional level of curation. In terms of in between the boxes, so passes attempted, 96th percentile. Okay, I said it was high. It is mainly short passing game. That's fine. Pass completion, 79%, which is 67th percentile. A little bit low, but then that's probably in taking risks. Okay, taking some risks in his passing. Progressive passes, 99th percentile. Again, feeds into the top one there a little bit. So that's 9 progressive passes per 90. That's exceptional, really. Progressive carry, so he carries the ball as well, 79th percentile, so that's 4.7 again. That's not just a carry, that's a progressive carry. So that's moving the ball 20% near a goal. Does it just sort of 5 again? Take on, I said that was a high stat, dropped off this season. Per 90, 2.8, so it's 93 percentile for take-ons. Touches in the 20 box, 87 percentile, so 6.6. So that's not in the high echelons of Mo, but that's in the next echelon down, 87 percentile. That's still pretty good. This is a surprise one for me. I would expect him to be in a position to receive the ball higher, but he's not. So therefore, he's clearly happy to come in, bring it, play, either carry it and play progressively, or play the pass and play progressively. So that's something. So it might not be a Diaz type left winger if we were operating in there, who likes to definitely receive, go in there. Oh, no, Diaz can carry as well. It might not be a Mo. It'd be something coming in and carrying it for us between the boxes. Okay. Then obviously with that amount of creative output, there will be there is some downside. Defensively, I said his aerials were low, 0.22, so that is 15th percentile for the wingers. Clearances, again, I'm not that fussed about that. That's 19th percentile. I'm be more concerned for a forward player that can put blocks or interceptions in. So second percentile blocks, which means he doesn't really get in the way of passing lanes. Interception means he's not getting in there to make an interception. 36th percentile, although that is his best defensive stat. The tackles, 13th percentile. So, yeah, let's be frank, he's not going to give you a lot defensively, and it might require a lot of work to get him on the page. Our system off the ball relies on every component doing their job, and he will have to learn that. And as much as Núñez took probably 2 years to get anywhere near the level of pressing and defensive ability needed, I'm not saying he would take that long, but it would be he would need some work on that. Now, if we compare him to, I've got Dom in here as the 10. So Dom is in red, Kerkez is in blue. Kerkez pretty much dominates Dom in the 10 position, that is, apart from, and then I'll give you no shocks, the defensive side of it, all right, which Dom is outperforming him, and pass completion, Dom is a little bit higher. But if we then roll that dice a little bit, I'll see if I can get Cody, perhaps, if he shows up. No, he's not showing up for me. But so that is a player that you could potentially compare him to, okay, and it would be there's certainly advantages from Kerkez coming in there. I'm just seeing if Cody shows up on Cody's, but it really does depend on where you want to play him. Okay, where are you thinking of bringing him in? Here he is with Cody. So AM versus AM again. Kerkez outperforming him attacking wise with Cody, but Cody off the ball again outperforming him. So yeah, he is a very he's two sides of a coin. He's one side of a coin, right? I suppose it's whether or not you want that player, whether you could bring him in. I mean, if you look at some of the past maps for Leon, he's in and around the right areas, which is what you'd expect if he's going to be that player for him. His involvement, because he's a creative fulcrum for him, he's getting a touch or a pass sometimes 2-3 times, even 5 times a minute. So he's heavily involved for Leon. I mean, this is the way it always is in the league. Low, sort of up to about 10 pass chains. Which some of that will be dominated by the way they play, right? So it's not like their PSG, is it? So different. See, here he's involved in all of the boxes, which is what we want, which is what we want to see from a player. In terms of where he is, dual success, though, to be fair, in this game, 50%, which is low. But I mean, that's considering some of the stats we just looked at, you'd expect that to be horrendous, right? So yeah, it's not too bad. 20% of the team's EPV, though, that's quite something. That is like Mo. Typically, our guys at the moment, if you look at those who will watch UP later or whatever else, Costas, Mac were the highest at the weekend for us, right? So to have a forward player do that would be something different for us. Mo can get up to those levels, but you don't generally see it anywhere else in that front four, should we say? He's on he has about 10% of the team's possession. He's operating at the 10 position for them. Okay, so some interesting bits in terms of his wagon wheel. He's bang on average for all the metrics, but it's not a bad thing. It's just not underperforming, which is nice. And threat creation, does he stop anything coming the other way? Actually, he did in this game. He stopped 100%, but only faced 0.1, so that's minimal. Really, supposed to be. It's like not a lot to write home about. But in the areas he's in, there's a big 15 there, which just shows you that's how much 15 and 5. So that's 20% of Leon's EPV in the heat map is in the area that he would have operated, which shows you that he is clearly the fulcrum of their attack. Right, it goes through him. Very, very impressive. That off the ball, not gonna lie to you, 7%. I mean, that's not. it's not a lot to write home about, clearing the wide players are doing sort of nearly 20% on their own. So yeah, it's not going to be a strong point. I mean, here in the second half, he's got 4% of defensive action. So yeah, it's clearly not something that he's going to generate. He scored in this game, and he was active in 2 distinct periods, the first 15 and then 60 to 75. So yeah, there are some interesting bits in terms of the shots he took from zone 14 and out wide. So yeah, I would suggest it really for me will come down to where do you want to play him. If you compare him with Dom, he clearly has some attacking output that is far superior to Dom's, right? I mean, there's no getting around the wagon wheel like that. For those who are listening on audio, it's very blue dominant on the attacking metrics, but defensively not. I mean, if we then looked at him as a midfielder, Dom comes up, don't get me wrong, comes up level, and Dom does put out performance on the defensive blocks. And they're actually very similar if you look at it on a midfielder scale. But that would suggest he's playing more in a 3, which we know Kirkis doesn't really do. He plays in the high advanced area. So yeah, I think it really is going to be where do you see him playing. Even as a midfielder, that performs him a little bit, but he clearly has some upside in terms of attacking wise. It's just if you're playing him in the AM for us, we ask our AM to do a lot of defensive work, which, as you see, he doesn't match up to Dom, right? So that's your trade. Does he give you more output than Dom attacking wise in the AM? For sure, 100%, right? But the flip side to that is he won't do any of that work or very limited amount of work that Dom does to help out the defense. So that's your trade-off. What do you want? And just the final piece, because we have got it available, because Mark clearly spends a lot of time working on these. His XT. So I've spoken a lot in Discord and viewers if you want to go and read that, but is how he solved the conundrum of losing 0.3 XT from Trent. Yeah. Well, your boy here has 0.31. Now, Lily won. I'm not going to try and pronounce it in French. To the UK, there is a metric comparison. I think you have to bring it down by about 0.93 or something like that. But I'll look it up. So there is a downgrade, but that is still significantly more than if we look at Dom, who is at 0.11 in that same area. Yeah. So there's a 20% difference in terms of threat creation between those two. And actually, to be fair, Mac is at 0.12 and Grav is at 0.11. So our 3 midfielders, if you were putting him in that pigeonhole, he's better than Diaz is 0.14, and I think Cody is 0.113 in terms of threat. So he is an upgrade. There is no doubt about that in terms of attacking output. It's just whether or not you can afford to have that player in your team, knowing that defensively you're probably not going to get what you need out of it for the period of time, and you might learn it, but from the off, he won't give you that.
This is fascinating. There's 2 things that really made me laugh about this more than anything. Number one was the fact you kept calling Rayan Cherki Kirkes at times throughout that. I enjoyed that bit. But aside from that bit anyway, I can't remember in all the time that we've done this at all. Maybe you're going to correct me on this. I can't remember a player where the eye test bears this out from the games we've seen him as well, that is so strong, almost a FIFA player, creative, highlights, dribbler, almost like being controlled by in a games console, like from the attacking element, so much to like. And obviously, he did a gesture to the United fans the other day, which wore me towards him as well. So, but that's a different conversation. But on the other side of this, but just to be honest, you can't possibly countenance a team where Mo Salah and Rayan Cherki line up in the same team, and you say to the other 8 outfield players, you're going to have to run a fair bit today. It just doesn't really seem likely, does it, if we're honest?
No, it doesn't. And I think that's it, isn't it, really? It's okay carrying a player, but at the moment, to be fair, I mean, Mo works hard off the ball, but he doesn't do as much as he used to, right? But the team are kind of fairly happy to go, do you know what, it's Mo Salah. Like he's earned his stripes, right? He can press the ball back, but we don't really want him coming back to do the rest of the work. But a new boy coming in, and they're like, hang on a minute, we've got to carry 2 of these. I'm not sure you would get that, and I think your midfield would turn from being. I think it's a nice blend of creation versus workmanlike at the moment. I think it would have to turn into I chatted earlier about a Klopp style midfield, which was very workmanlike. They were technical, but generally, fundamentally speaking, they were industrious. They won the ball back and gave it to the other players, right? And I think if you were going to even attempt to have Cherki and Mo in the same team, your midfield would just have to turn into that. And I think you could end up in a very similar situation to Madrid have found themselves at this year, where you had Mbappe in, you had Bellingham, you have Vinicius Jr., all don't really want to be doing the amount of defensive work that you need. You try and carry 2.5 players. And even with the elite players that Madrid have, they haven't been able to do.
Yeah, this is a popular one with some people. It seems a fashionable side, and I get it. Skillful, creative, there's zero doubt about that. It's a talented player, only a fool would say different. But from what you see on the eye, the lack of the defensive stats, not the quickest particularly as well. It just seems, even for those that will be shouting about he could cover Salah, I just don't see it. So we will move on from Rayan Cherki to a completely different type of player, Bart. Nicolo Rovella. So Rovella, for those that may or may not know, on loan at Lazio, one of those players that's on one of those Italian-style 2-year loans that is now going to be made permanent from Juventus, with suggestions the fee or the reports are around 70 million euros. So we're not talking much money. So that will come into ourselves if we are going to make the move and we think it's worthwhile. Important to say as well, known to be not the highest wages in Serie A, but this name is on the radar. There's quite a few, as we know, that have said, we're looking at Rovella. Absolutely, he's a player we scouted. We know Richard Hughes has links to the Italian market as well. Maybe the most interesting thing to say about this player, a lot of people in football compare him to Martin Zubimendi. And we all know what happened with that last summer as well. So with that, I am interested to see what do the metrics say about, I won't say kid because he's 23 years old, but a central midfielder.
I think it's important to know, start of all, he's 178 centimetres. So it's not small, but it's not, I think Grab's 181, I think. So he's a little bit, it's not far off Grab, but he's only 68k. Now I'm 68k. Right, and I'm shorter than him, but I'm saying to you that to be that tall and only 68k, there's always a question mark. I think we have to put it out there, the elephant in the room. Italians coming to Premier League, right? There is always a question mark about a certain type. You have to be a physical monster, I think, to come from Italy to the UK. You have to be able to, it's a cultural, there's so many things that go against you. And straight off there, I'm like, ooh, that doesn't strike me as powerhouse. All right. No, that strikes me as technical on the ball, but could be a little bit wafer thin, maybe. But I mean, not saying he couldn't get the power into him, but straight off, I'm a little bit like, okay, that's an interesting ratio. Not one, Tonaloni at Newcastle is a clear powerhouse, been a success, that transfer, but he's built very differently to this lad. All right. So that's just to say. Just putting that out there because people will be saying, Italians don't travel and the rest of it. All right. So there is an element to that. If you look at his minutes for this season, we'll go into it in more detail. He's at about 2.7. So he should be clocking in just sort of 3K, to be fair to you, this season, which, as you and I have been doing this, 23 episodes now. That is a serious amount of minutes played, right? That's not a little bit in the back. I'm just trying to find some actual minutes to go through it. But yeah, so if you look here, he's gradually built up. I think in 22-23, he's buying there. So that's about 1,700. Came on the scene, played 105. All right. Then the following season played just short of 1,200, then went up just short of 1,500, then played just short of 1,800. Then for 23-24, dropped off a little bit. And then for this season, he's gone up back again, massively back up again. And he probably finished just sort of 12, 5. Okay. So that's some progression in terms of minutes. He's shown he can do it. If he's played in Europe, that's twice a week. So that's some positives to be taken there. I would definitely look at. If you look at how is he doing XG when he's on the pitch, this season a little bit down, but it's basically neutral, right? Last season, basically neutral. Season before that, when he played less, actually at Juve, it was actually a positive impact, but he played less minutes. So, yeah, take it a big assault. And see success this year is down on last season, almost the complete reverse. Okay, so there's some things to take into consideration there. Possession, he's on the ball, so it's about 77, just short of 80 touches a game, which is the last 2 seasons when he's been at Lazio. If you look at Cherki before, he was in around 60, yeah. So this is a 10 touches more, but less in the attacking penalty box, right? Which is kind of what you'd expect for somebody who's just going to sit and do that. If we then roll up to defensive actions is pretty important for him. So he is blocks, challenges, and tackles in around two challenges, 2.5 challenges a game, 1.5. So some interesting. We'll look at those when we look in terms of the wagon wheels. Goal creating actions. So he's on 0.081. He's on nothing for this. To be fair, he's got very limited. Shot creating actions though per 90. He's at 2.3. So it has some impact, but they don't necessarily lead to a goal. That might not be his fault, right? It could be the forward in front of him not putting the chance away. If we look at passing, so what is he like? If I just get away from that before I break my screen. There we go. Pass types, he is genuinely, just trying to balance it, 3 balls, 2.4, which has gone up. So that is something we would try and get from our deep line play. If he's going to be a bit of a deep line playmaker, may not be. Passing generally though, so completion rate of 89. So we normally look about 85 to be our benchmark for our midfielders. Yeah. He's well in that. Short. So he's generally attempting mid-60s passing. 24 of that, so just short of a third are short, another third of that are medium, and then the remaining pretty So the long is a low amount, but he mainly spends a lot of his game in the medium and short term. Okay, with good completion rates for those two. It's only a long game that drops a little bit in terms of his completion rate. So that's some things to be pleased about. We look at general stats though. So non-player XG and XA together is 0.12. So I think it would be fair to say he's not a particularly creative player or a goal scorer, but he has an impact in the chain somewhere. We'll look at his XG later on when we've done the rest. If we look at the usual kind of percentiles, so this is against midfielders. The areas of defensive that are not that. I mean, areas I'd like to see a little bit higher, but it's not massively important. Blocks and clearances, okay. So blocks would be good to see in block passing lanes, but that's not like, oh my God, that's really important. Interceptions is nice. So 92% percentile, which means 92nd percentile, sorry. So he's able to nip in front and nick that ball. That's quite impressive. And tackles, that's something I would less be happy to see, because that's generally made when you haven't done another deflection action to win that ball. So something to be keep on, but he's on the 87th percentile. In terms of how does he move that ball between the boxes, as the little keys were there in the rest of it, it is through passing. He's not a carrier. I mean, he's a low. It's a 60th, 65th, and 61st percentile for progressive carries and carries. I mean, that's just that's not something he's going to be doing a lot of. Touches in the penalty box as well. He's not looking to get on there. All right. But in terms of passing, pass completion, 88th percentile, and passes attempted, 91st percentile. The only disappointing thing is not more of those are progressive.
Progressive, yeah.
Okay, so it's a steady Eddie. It's a kind of a get it, play it, play it, play it. Keep the ball ticking over, but he's not necessarily going to find that killer ball, that one in behind. And attacking wise, yeah, a shot creating action 61st percentile, as we alluded to, he's not going to give you a lot on the attacking side of things. In terms of comparison, he is going to come in as competition for Gravenberg. I think that's fair to say if he was going to come in. And this is why I've pulled him up this wagon where we're Grav. And to be honest with you, a fairly similar, yes, he's actually creating more shot critical actions and passes attempted than Grav. In terms of the rest of the metrics, Grav probably outperforms him, which, to be honest with you, is a bit of a concern because Grav is not known for his passing, right? And if you're going to marry him up or give an alternative, we like to get to that Swiss Army knife, should we say? You'd like him to be doing stuff that Grav doesn't do, as well as the defensive stuff, right? And this is a bit similar to me, but at a slightly lower level. So progressive passes are about the same. Progressive carries, we know Gravenberg likes to carry that ball. Yeah. Therefore, his take ons are better. Touches are higher for Nicolo. But in terms of the rest, you've got Grav is probably at a pretty decent level. So, yeah, there's not a massive difference between the two players. It just looks like potentially Nicolo has created slightly more shot creating actions, but that isn't necessarily something to write home about because it's only in the 61st percentile. Okay, so yeah, some things to be wary of. If you look at where does he pick the ball up for Lazio, he's in and around these central areas, which is what we want him to be doing. How much is he on the ball? He's not on the ball as much. He's probably on the ball. I mean, saying that, just compared him to a guy who's a fulcrum of attack. So he's on the ball every other minute, should we say? Taking a touch or pass every other minute, which is okay. It's just not going to give you that progression. Involved in low chains, so up to 10. And then in terms of what does he do? He's made some passes into the right half spaces, but as I said, the progressive stuff isn't really his game. All right, that's not. It's not going to be a high point of his. In terms of on the ball, so he's on the ball for just short of 13% time, 42% duel rate. He's involved 13% of the EPV for the team, which probably to be predicted, to be fair. EPV, what does he stop? So he is stopping here 90% of the threat he faced. And what is he creating? There's only about 7% in his area. Okay, so yeah, there's some things there where you that's kind of where we'd expect to look at the metrics. Things that you might not be wanting to look at though is in the area that he would be operating in. The defensive actions are quite low. That's sort of 5% there for the entire game. Either side of him are considerably more. And if you went back to just in front of the back four, okay, fair enough. That goes up to about 9%, but that's still a little bit low considering one of his main roles, I would say, in there is to win a regain possession. Okay. XG shot isn't really going to give you a lot. The final one I was going to look at was in terms of a good old number threat. So he offers 0.11 threat, which is not surprisingly the same as Gravenberg. So there you go. That's Rabiot. I think fair to say, interesting. Could be a useful addition to the squad. My concerns would be whether he could make the transition to play in the Premier League. And he isn't too dissimilar to Grav. So that would be just the things that I would be going on if I was going to be honest with you. He's not going to close the gap in terms of threat correction.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. And when you put that together, I understand why they compare Rovella with Zubamendi. Because even if you just watch his footage, especially that marries with the stats, very metronomic, as in, like you said, keeps the ball moving, wins it, like ticks the side over. A bit of passing forward, but it's not really progressive as the stats bear out. And for a guy that's in the 91st percentile for just passes attempted, to only be in the 65th percentile for progressive passes is probably quite distinct. It is sort of a sideways shift. It could do that. The one thing that you said to me here, and I think this might be a deal breaker before we get on to the value element. 179 centimeters. I just checked it there. Grav 190. So that's big. We're talking 11 centimeters there. So probably talking this guy about 5'8", 5'9", maybe 5'10" at a push for those who might jump on me for absolute metrics, but not the biggest, as you said. The kg as well. That is worth calling out because he's showing there as 68 kilograms. Grav 78. 10 kilos at elite Premier League level is massive, as we've talked about before, for just size. And I think back to another midfielder we talked about. We looked at Lamine Camara. Do you remember the Monaco boy who had a lot to like, but he was just so small and so slight? The big question is, how does that translate? So with all that in mind, I mean, fee-wise, it looks like Lazio are going to exercise an option for 17 million euros, and there's talk of a 50 million release clause, but expectations that if he was to move, and again, through various reports, mainly coming from Italy, it's around 35 to 40 million pounds. So it's not massive, massive money, but it's not chump change either in elite football terms. When you stack it all up for you, Bart, is it a case of you have to have the Italy concern because apart from the likes of Tonali, who you said it was a different beast because of his size, engine and everything like that, and his base, there's that. But the Italy, and people will reference Chiesa as a transition, the size and the physicality, and maybe just a great passer, but not a progressive passer. Does that probably steer into the mix a bit for you?
It does. I mean, I think... we were in a chat about this. I think he is a bit like Zuma Mendy, if I'm being honest with you. And I think we've said on this show before, I think we've moved on from the Zuma Mendy type, I've been honest with you. I just think, I think if we're still looking at this type of player, having had a season in the Premier League, I'm like, there's some things to learn from being in a season in the Premier League, right? And yes, he might want more technical midfielders, okay. But there have been games where we have needed a bit more of a physical presence in there. You know, Newcastle, West Ham, Everton, for example, or when Manchester had now midfield. I'm not sure this guy helps you solve that puzzle. I mean, it clearly we like this type of player because I think he is similar to Zuma Mendy. He's younger. The fee's about right. For me, it's that transition from Serie A to the Premier League is never a great path. And I would be wary of whether this is the right guy to test that part again. Personally. But as we always say, it's not my money. I can see why you might like this player. But for me, the movement from Serie A to Premier League is always a bit... It's not straightforward, and I'd have a concern about that personally, as well as the physical nature of this player doesn't seem to be in the right ballpark that we would need.
You can almost see why this player is succeeding in the Italian league, but the step 100%. Over may just be that bit too much. So, liked, but it would be a bit of a surprise if Liverpool pulled the trigger on that one. We'll see what happens there. Now, one player. Everyone will know this name if you can see it on the screen. Stefan Bajcetic. Been on loan for 2 clubs. He went to Red Bull Salzburg with Pep Linders. That didn't quite work out. Now at Las Palmas, Bart, as people are referencing. Now, in terms of recency bias, I'm intrigued by this because this is maybe about as good as it gets in terms of recency bias because he played the other night when Las Palmas beat Atletico Madrid. So he was a part of that. He played the 90 minutes. He also played when they beat Getafe. He played 90 minutes of that one in sort of the CM, the DM role, alternating between the two. But people have seen highlights from those games and gone basically, almost thinking back to Rovella, what we've just said. This is the physicality. This kid can be the 4th option, 5th option, whatever you want to call him. And it sounds great because then it'd be free, wouldn't it? And he's had a season to develop and all that. There's this combined with, well, Slot sent him away with the greatest respect last summer, was not worried about losing him and sort of having him depart and reducing his options there. It's important to say at the same time. So if we try and look as objectively as we can, what are the metrics now saying for Stefan Bajcetic? And I suppose it's basing it, could he come in and be a viable midfield option?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think this is probably a player that divides a lot of people, and I think it's probably which way you viewed his performances 2 years ago now as well, by the way. So remember, last season he was injured for basically the entirety of the season. Yeah, the season before was the Real Madrid games, yada yada yada, right? So yeah, that's what I'm saying. That there's quite a gap between people's memory of him doing what they think he did in big games to now, right? And that's not great for a kid. Like, in terms of development, to be out injured for that long, trying to rebuild your career, gone to Austria and tried to get going, and I actually don't think that's ever a good idea to put a player someone for another club. I just think in terms of our culture of a dressing room works, I just don't think you're ever going to be accepted that well. Do you know what I mean? I think it's just a kind of a problem. But anyway, that's for another day. But he's got the next move back to Spain, bit of cultural there that he's used to. So he's basically clocking in around 1,200 minutes now for the season. All right. Yeah. So that's still he needs to build up, right? He's come back to his breakout season with us. He managed to sort of 500. Yes, he's got some Premier League too, but not massive amount. So there are some things to take on board with that. In terms of the team, he's on the pitch, team success. He's got, for Las Palmas, he's actually positive in terms of XG when he's on the pitch. So he's having a slightly positive impact on the team when he's playing, which is fine. The rest of the stats are going to be patchy because it's either PL2 or Austrian Bundesliga, right? Austrian league. It's just not a great thing. So yeah, it's going to be difficult to look at. If we come up to his standard, so what's he doing this year for Las Palmas? He's getting about 0.16, 0.13, which is similar to what we just looked at, right? In terms of the impact on creative.
Hopefully we have not lost Bart, just as that was going to be the good bit as well, because I'll kind of jump in a little bit just here while we're waiting for him to come back. And we were saying it's hard to profile Stefan Bajcetic at the moment more than anything because of the multiple leagues. And I'm hoping Bart's going to come back because he's going to give you a bit more insight into the wagon wheel more than anything else and different bits. Have we got your back, Bart? Because literally it was just this bit we were just starting to lean into. As you said, the minutes with Badge are difficult because it's part Las Palmas, it's part Salzburg. Yeah. Which great respect is a little bit of a nada league in that regard. You can't do that. But can we try and be fair and balanced with the metrics here?
Yeah, I think I'm trying. I mean, I genuinely like the kid, right? I like any products of ours. Please don't. It's just sometimes you have to take it with a pinch of salt. He is still a kid as well. He is like 20. Like, he's still a youngster, right? Yeah. Defensively, there is a lot of green there, right? We're not going to get away from that. In the last 365 days, tackles 87 percentile, interceptions 76, blocks, which is kind of the stuff that we actually want our midfielder to do. Clearances and errors one, okay, fair enough. We wouldn't really want to do a lot of clearances, but it shows that he's adaptable to different styles to do that. Okay. The bit that we would like to see a bit more green in, I'm not going to lie to you, is this bit in between the boxes. All right. Yeah. And the only one is the take-ons, which is kind of what Grab does. And we don't really need that. Right? we kind of need a passer in there. And as it's already been alluded to, his pass completion is the 8th percentile for a midfielder.
Yeah.
And you might be thinking, yeah, but it's 74%. Yeah, but the standard for us is 85 for a midfielder, right? So that's a lot. Passes attempted. We just looked at a lad for Lazio who was at nearly 70 passes a game. Yeah. This guy's Bajcetic is at 47 percentile. So comparing like for like, it's not in that same ballpark. And the team he's playing for are not a heavily dominant team. All right, they're a bit more defensive, so they're not going to get a lot of ball. I think we have to caveat that with it. He is playing a very defensive role, clearly, because he's not being asked to get in there. He's just not being asked to go and do anything in the box. He has got 66 percentile for non-penalty goals, which means he must have scored or something, because that's quite high compared to the rest of the averages. But if you look at his wagon wheel, and we need to compare him with Grav, right? That's the guy who's going to come into play. He's not going to come in and play with instead of Matt. He's going to come in and be the 6th for us, okay? I would suggest. Grav doesn't outperform him on a lot of things, but the things that he doesn't is the stuff that's green. So clearances, blocks, the tackles, interceptions, the non-penalty goals. He does outperform Grav. So it's fair to say there are some elements that he's better at Grav, but 3/4 of the wagon wheel, Grav is a better player. Grav is also older. Grav plays for a dominant team, more possession. So I think we just try to be kind to him. That is probably where we're at with him. If we were going to compare him to the guy we just looked at, Rovella, sorry, he is more dominant. He's only dominant in half of them, and still Badge does better with the defensive metrics. Yeah. So there is some elements there that Badge is clearly trying to rebuild his career, to be frank. If you spend a year out and then you have a really bad loan spell, you really do need to start doing something. Otherwise, you're going to be left by the wayside. If you look at where is he at, they're playing green. So he's in the central parts here. He's well linked. All right, he makes lots of good connections. On the ball, this would be where I'd be a little bit disappointed. If he's the fulcrum, he should be on the ball a lot more. Even if it's just the TikTok stuff, which you've just said from the Lazio lad, he still should be on the ball. But that's a pass every other or every third minute, or a pass or touch. It's not something we really want to be seeing. Passing change is in less than 0 to 5, which again is a little bit low for us, but could be that sort of play. And then this is in terms of his ability to get the ball into the final, half space is 2. There's only 2 instances he managed to do that. So that's something that we'd want to be seeing in that. He's on the ball for 8% of the time, so not a low amount, but he's not giving you the kind of thing going the other way. Percentage of teams EPB 3.9. He's not great. Dual rate 16%. So considering he's in the high percentiles for those wins, that doesn't translate necessarily. Threat, what did he stop? He stopped. Unfortunately, in this game, he actually stopped nothing coming out in terms of threat creation. And in terms of his box, it's 2% and 3% to 5. So again, leading into those metrics, not showing his best creative. Defensively, not great. That's the reason it's NA is because there's not a lot of action in there. And there's no XG build from him. So yeah, the only thing I would look at is looking here, where does he appear for this is La Liga, put it up. Bajcetic on here, if I can quickly find it, there he is. He's 0.08. So given all of that, in terms of threat, he's only 2 down on Grafenberg. So that's a little green shoot, should we say? It's just unfortunately the rest of his profile. I would say, I'm not sure Slot is going to look at that and say, there's a space in my team for him. Is he better than Endo? That's an entirely different question. Maybe something to think about. If Endo goes, maybe Badge comes in. But on the outlook, Badge could do with another loan. Maybe could do with another year playing regularly to try and build his career. Okay, maybe is what I would suggest with him. And I'd love him to succeed. I think he's a good kid. But that year out being injured, it's really hampered him. Really, really hampered him.
Is it almost fair to say when you look at Badge? I mean, you can see if you watch those games, especially, he's grown about half a foot. He's tall. He's rangy. He's not actually far off Gravenberch's height. Like you said, the defensive metrics really show up. I mean, they're a big thing. 99th percentile in blocks. A lot of green, as you said, in defensive. That is good to see. There's no doubts about that at all. And maybe you put it a good way in terms of if you were to base him against Endo, who is primarily there to be defensive when he comes on and shut it down, you could make that case, absolutely. The big thing I wanted to ask you about, though, Barts, is, as we saw, his passing attempted is in the 42nd percentile, and his pass completion, 8th percentile. So he's miles down on what you need a Liverpool midfielder to be. Is maybe a better conversation to be if he was to be kept around, because he doesn't profile like the others. It's almost, if he was, is it as an Endo type that if you sell Endo, maybe, because he wants to move on, if you've got that player, is there any case on that basis at all?
Yeah, I mean, just bringing up Endo there and comparing him, Endo's in blue, Badge is in red. Their profile is extremely similar, which I don't actually helps Badge out because there's a lot of limitations to Endo, which is why he won't start. Right?
Yeah.
But and actually, Endo's got better pass completion and passes attempted stats than Badge. So you could see that, right? Okay, from a business point of view, you make £16 million from selling Endo, and you have a kid who's costing you nothing come in and fill that spot in the squad. Cool. Could see them doing that, making that call, yeah. But Badge, that's the wrong call. For me, he needs to go and play. It's like Morton. Morton needs to go and play. Yeah. Those players now are at the age, Badge is 20. He needs to go and reclaim, start building up the minutes again to prove he can play game in, game out, and actually find his game again. Because I think he's at a big crossroads. For me, coming and sitting on our bench and being a closer, should we say, for Liverpool, I don't think is the best move for him personally. And that's why I would suggest, even if long term he ends up being Liverpool, fine. I think for next season he needs to go and play somewhere. Second club syndrome. If there's another club we can go and bark him out and it's not going to cost us anything, cool. But now I think for him to come back and play the Endo role, could he do that? Yes. Is it right for the player? I don't think so.
No, it doesn't really give slot or us probably the rotation element that we're looking for, particularly in that regard. And the final one on this, it almost links to a player. I don't know if you can get that dashboard up from Badge against Atletico when you were looking at players that way. We've mentioned him on the transfer show. And if you speak to people who do watch Spanish football, they will say when you compare him against stats and you had all the players there, that a player we've looked at, Dario Asugo, is a player that we tried to get, but he's set for Chelsea. That actually, as well as Badge has been doing for Las Palmas in recent games, our info is that this kid that we wanted, Dario Asugo, is maybe more suited to us, was doing the heavy lifting in midfield in terms of winning the ball, and Badge was playing the secondary element in a struggling Las Palmas side. Did the stats show that as well when you level Asugo's role in the middle? Does he shine a bit better than Badge at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, he's on the ball roughly the same amount of time as Badge. He's got a 75% dual win rate, which is infinitely better than Badge. His passing succession is better at 74%, still below what we would want. He's attempting 34. Yeah, so he's having a better 53 touches versus 49. He's having a better before. He's got 100. No, he hasn't. He's got a 75% aerial draw rate as well versus 33. There's a lot to like for that kid in terms of where he's playing for them. So he's playing this role here. Badge is playing to the left. So I can see why that could potentially be a slightly better fit. But I don't know what his physical metrics are. So I don't know.
So, it's probably fair to say that the defensive element with Badge, absolutely. There's Endo elements there, and we know how good Endo is defensively. The problem is we know the limitations on the ball, and Badge is, even as the stats are showing at the moment, more limited. Yes, people will flag it's in a very struggling Las Palmas side battling relegation, but I don't really think there's any other way to dress this up. There's potential there. Badge needs minutes next season at another club, doesn't he, Bart?
Yeah, that it just needs to play. Like it comes a point where the kid, actually all kids, they just need to play football. They need to hone their game, right? There is no point a kid being sat on our bench. And I actually think Slot had that view as well. That's why he sent a lot of our kids off. He's like, yes, you're good, but you need minutes to go and get your game right. And if you're not happy with that, then we'll sell you, because that's what he's the decision. And you might think, oh, that's a bit harsh. Look at what we did. We had a great academy, and that's fine. But if they're not getting the minutes, they're just going to be that player. They're not going to progress. You don't know what they could become. You know, Trent is the player he is today because he had minutes. Yeah, he took an opportunity. They played him. They managed his minutes through, and he became the best right back in the world. But that was purely because opportunity, because Klein got injured. He came in, never looked back, and he got minutes to develop his game. Gerrard the same. When he get that's a long, long time ago, but he was given minutes to develop his game. If those minutes were on the table, they wouldn't be the players they are today, or were.
And there, I think you have it, ladies and gents. When you look at the three names that we've looked at there, Rayan Cherki, all the attacking talent in the world, brilliant creativity. Defensively, absolutely non-existent. And could you carry him and Mo Salah in the same team? I think the other 8 outfield players might have a bit to say. Nicolo Rovella, very metronomic, Zubamendi style, moves that ball very well. Not progressively, though. And lightweight, an Italian coming to the Premier League. Maybe there's a Tonali shout, but maybe there's a Chiesa shout. And the physical elements, there's real question marks there. Stefan Bajcetic, a lot of green in the defensive metrics. We want him to succeed. People will hark back to that couple of years ago, but it was a couple of years ago. And the passing metrics just are not there for a Liverpool midfielder. And you can shout to us about Las Palmas and how well he's been doing, but Liverpool, more endo than Gravenberch. And for a 20-year-old, he just needs to play elsewhere. There we're going, ladies and gents. 3 that it's hard to see in a Liverpool shirt, even for the one that's returning, maybe alone is best. But we've ran them, we've analysed them, we've given you the metrics. You can make of it what you will. All it leaves me to say as ever is Bart, for running that, for providing the insights and all the metrics. It is much appreciated.
No worries, anytime.
It's just funny you kept calling Cherki Kirkes, but that's a different discussion. And ladies and gents, that was another Transfer Market Metrics